The observation station hung silently above Earth's moon, hidden from human telescopes by technology that bent light around its hull. Inside, Ambassador Lyris of the Galactic Concord stood before a massive viewing screen that showed the blue and green planet below. She had watched this world for 12 years now. She knew its continents, its weather patterns, and the small lights of its cities that glowed at night. Earth was beautiful. Its people were fascinating. And in 3 days, they would probably all be dead. "The evacuation orders have been confirmed," said her assistant, a thin creature named Voss, whose species communicated through color changes in their skin. Right now, Voss was pale blue, the color of resignation. "All Concord personnel are to withdraw from this sector immediately." Lyris did not turn from the screen. "And the humans? What about them? Are we warning them? Offering transport? Anything?" Voss shifted to a darker blue. "Ambassador, you know the Council's position. Earth is a primitive world. They have no faster-than-light capability, no meaningful space presence, and no strategic value. The resources required to evacuate even a fraction of their population would be what? Too expensive?" Lyris finally turned, and her 4 eyes were bright with anger. "There are 8 billion sentient beings on that planet, Voss. 8 billion, and there are 40 trillion beings in the Concord." Voss replied quietly. "The Vectari are coming. They have already taken 6 systems. We do not have ships to spare for a species that most of the Council considers barely more than clever animals." Lyris wanted to argue. She wanted to scream. But she knew Voss was right about the Council's view. She had read the official assessment of humanity many times. It described them as aggressive, primitive, self-destructive, and centuries away from meaningful technological development. The report noted their constant wars, their pollution of their own world, and their failure to unite as a species. The conclusion was simple. Humanity was not worth saving, but Lyris had spent 12 years watching them. She had seen their art, heard their music, and observed their capacity for both cruelty and kindness. They were young, yes, primitive by galactic standards, certainly, but they were not worthless. "I want to send a warning," she said. "Just a message. Something to give them a chance." Voss turned orange with concern. "That would violate first contact protocols. The Council has specifically forbidden any communication with pre-spaceflight species during the current crisis. The current crisis is exactly why they need to know. Ambassador." Voss moved closer and lowered his voice. "The Vectari do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They have conquered 11 species in the last 100 years. Their empire spans 200 systems. What exactly would you have the humans do with a warning? They cannot run. They cannot hide. They certainly cannot fight. All you would give them is fear." Lyris looked back at the screen. Somewhere on that planet, humans were going about their lives. They were eating breakfast. They were going to work. They were arguing about politics and watching entertainment and falling in love. They had no idea that a fleet of warships was cutting through the galaxy toward them, leaving dead worlds in its wake. "Perhaps fear is better than ignorance," she said. "Perhaps. But it is not your decision to make." The door to the observation room opened, and a military officer entered. He was Krath, a species known for their discipline and their complete lack of emotional expression. His gray face showed nothing as he delivered his message. "Ambassador Lyris, your transport is ready. We depart in 1 hour." "1 hour?" She shook her head. "I was told I had 3 days. The timeline has changed. Vectari scout ships have been detected at the edge of this system. The main fleet is closer than we thought. We must leave now." Lyris felt cold spread through her body. "They're already here?" "Nearly. Our projections suggest the full invasion force will arrive within 72 hours. The officer paused. "You should know that a request was made to at least broadcast a warning to the human population. It was denied. The Council believes that panic would only cause unnecessary suffering before the end." "The end," Lyris repeated. "You say it so easily. I say it accurately. The humans have chemical rockets and primitive satellites. The Vectari have planet crackers and a fleet of 10,000 ships. There is no scenario in which Earth survives. I am sorry, Ambassador. I know you have grown, attached to your assignment, but this world was always going to be lost. It simply happened, sooner than expected." He turned and left. Voss followed. After a moment of hesitation, Lyris remained alone in the observation room, staring at the planet that had become her home. She thought about sending the warning anyway. She could do it. The equipment was right there. One message, one broadcast on frequencies the humans monitored. She could tell them everything. The Vectori were coming. The galaxy had abandoned them. They should prepare for what? The officer was right. What could the humans possibly do? They had no weapons that could scratch a Vectori ship. They had no shields, no FTL drives, no experience with space warfare. A warning would only cause chaos. Governments would collapse. People would riot. Millions would die in the panic before the Vectori even arrived. Perhaps ignorance truly was kinder. Lyris placed her hand against the screen, as if she could somehow touch the world below. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Then she turned and walked away. On Earth, life continued as normal. In New York, people complained about traffic. In Tokyo, students prepared for exams. In London, rain fell on ancient streets. In Cairo, merchants sold their goods in crowded markets. Nowhere did anyone look up at the sky and feel afraid. But in certain places, in buildings that did not appear on any map, people who did not officially exist were watching screens of their own. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility that had been carved from solid granite 60 years ago, General Marcus Stone studied the same data that had made the Concorde decide to flee. "Confirmed," said the technician beside him. "Multiple signatures at the edge of the solar system. Configuration matches what we've seen in the intercepted communications. It's a Vectori scout force." Stone was 73 years old. He had white hair, a face like weathered leather, and eyes that had seen things no human was supposed to see. He had been recruited into this program when he was 30, just a young officer who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or perhaps the right place at the right time, depending on how you looked at it. "How long until the main fleet arrives?" he asked. "Based on their standard approach patterns, approximately 72 hours. Stone nodded slowly. "And the Concorde station?" "Preparing to leave. They're abandoning the system." "Of course they are." Stone allowed himself a small, cold smile. "They've been watching us for 300 years. They think they know everything about us. They think we're primitives who are too stupid to notice their observation posts, too backward to intercept their communications, too primitive to understand what we were hearing." He turned to face the room. It was filled with screens and equipment that looked nothing like anything publicly available on Earth. Some of it was human-made. Some of it was reverse-engineered from technology that had crashed in the New Mexico desert in 1954. All of it was secret. "Ladies and gentlemen," Stone said, "we've been preparing for this day for 70 years. We've built ships the galaxy doesn't know exist. We've developed weapons they can't imagine. We've trained for a war we hoped would never come." He paused. "It's here now. The Vectori think they're coming to conquer a primitive world. They think this will be easy." He looked at the screens showing Earth, the same view that Ambassador Lyris had studied moments before. "They're wrong. Around the world, in facilities hidden beneath oceans and mountains and deserts, lights began to turn on. Systems that had been dormant for decades hummed to life. Ships that had never flown began their startup sequences. And in the depths of the Pacific Ocean, in a shipyard larger than most cities, the pride of humanity's secret fleet opened its eyes for the first time. The Vectori were coming. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Vectori advance fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel just beyond the orbit of Neptune. Commander Zoreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, and watched the tactical display populate with information about the system ahead. "Report," he ordered. His tactical officer responded immediately. 9 planets, 1 habitable world, 3rd from the star. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level is pre-space flight. They have primitive satellites, chemical propulsion, and basic nuclear capability. No threat assessment. Zorath made a sound of satisfaction. His species was reptilian, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes that gleamed yellow in the dim bridge lighting. He had conquered 37 worlds in his career. This one would be 38. The Concorde observation station departed 12 hours ago. The system is abandoned. "Cowards," Zoreth said. "They run from us like prey animals, but running only delays the inevitable." He settled into his command chair. Begin approach. Standard intimidation protocol. I want to be in orbit around their primary world within 6 hours. The fleet moved forward. 20 ships in total, each one bristling with weapons that could level cities. It was a small force by Vecthari standards, but more than enough for a primitive species with no real defenses. As they passed the outer planets, Zorath reviewed the intelligence reports on humanity. They were an interesting species, he supposed. Aggressive for their development level, constantly fighting among themselves. The analysts believed they would have destroyed themselves within a few centuries anyway, making the Vecthari invasion something of a mercy. The reports also noted that humans were unusually creative. They had developed nuclear weapons within decades of discovering atomic theory. They had reached their moon using technology that was barely above the level of controlled explosions. There was a footnote suggesting they should be watched carefully, given time. Zorath dismissed this concern. Creativity meant nothing without the power to act on it. The humans might be clever, but cleverness did not stop plasma cannons. 6 hours later, the Eternal Conquest achieved orbit above Earth. The planet filled the main view screen, blue and green and swirled with white clouds. Zorath thought it was quite beautiful. Actually, it would make an excellent addition to the Empire. Open a channel, he ordered. All frequencies. I want every creature on that planet to hear this. The communications officer worked his controls. Channel open, Commander. Zorath stood and straightened his uniform. He had given this speech many times before. The words never changed, because the outcome never changed. Attention, inhabitants of this world. I am Commander Zorath of the Vecthari Dominion. Your planet has been selected for integration into our empire. You will surrender all resources, technology, and governmental authority to our forces. 1/5 of your population will be selected for labor allocation. Resistance is not recommended. He paused, letting the words sink in. Across the planet, he knew, billions of beings were hearing this message for the first time, learning that they were not alone in the universe, learning that their new neighbors were not friendly. You have 1 hour to respond. If we do not receive complete and unconditional surrender, we will demonstrate the consequences of defiance. A city of our choosing will be destroyed as an example. After that, you will have 1 additional hour to reconsider. Our patience is not unlimited. He gestured, and the channel closed. Now we wait, he said. They always take time to argue among themselves. Some will want to fight. Some will want to surrender. In the end, they will realize they have no choice. The bridge crew returned to their duties. Zorath sat back in his chair and watched the planet turn slowly below him. 43 minutes later, his communications officer looked up with a confused expression. Commander, we're receiving a response. Already? Zorath was surprised. Most species took the full hour, and often longer. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and a face appeared. It was a human, Zorath realized. An older male with white hair and cold eyes. He wore a uniform of some kind, though not one that matched any of Earth's known military forces. Commander Zorath, the human said. His voice was calm, almost pleasant. My name is General Marcus Stone. I've been authorized to speak on behalf of Earth's Unified Defense Council. Zorath leaned forward slightly. You have a Unified Defense Council? Our intelligence indicated your species was incapable of cooperation. Your intelligence was incomplete. The human smiled, but there was no warmth in it. We received your terms. I'm afraid they're unacceptable. Unacceptable? Zorath almost laughed. General, I don't think you understand your situation. You have no fleet. You have no weapons capable of reaching my ships. You have nothing except the illusion of choice. I am offering you the opportunity to surrender with minimal casualties. The alternative is extinction. I understand my situation perfectly, Stone replied. Here's what I don't think you understand. We've known about your empire for 70 years. We've intercepted your communications. We've studied your tactics. We've watched you conquer world after world. And we've been preparing for the day you came for us. Zorath felt the first hint of unease. Preparing how? I'm afraid that's classified. Stone's smile widened slightly. But I'll give you the same choice you gave us. Leave our system now, peacefully, and there will be no conflict. If you don't, he shrugged. Well, I suppose we'll find out what happens. The bridge was silent. Every officer was staring at the screen, unable to believe what they were hearing. A primitive species, threatening the Vectari dominion? Zorath's unease turned to anger. You're bluffing. You have nothing. Maybe, Stone agreed. There's only one way to find out. Then consider this demonstration your answer. Zorath cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Target their largest coastal city. Full bombardment. I want nothing left but glass. Targeting New York City, Commander. Firing solution locked. Fire. The Eternal Conquest's main cannon powered up. It was a weapon designed to crack planetary crusts, to turn continents into wastelands. Against an unshielded city, it would be instant annihilation. The beam launched, and then, impossibly, it stopped. Zorath shot to his feet. What happened? I don't understand, Commander. The weapons officer was checking and rechecking his instruments. The beam was intercepted. Something caught it in the upper atmosphere and absorbed it. That's impossible. Nothing on this planet could. Commander. The tactical officer's voice was sharp with alarm. New contacts emerging. Multiple signatures. Coming from everywhere. The tactical display exploded with information. Ships were appearing around Earth, rising from the oceans, launching from hidden bases on every continent, emerging from behind the moon. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They were not large by Vectari standards, but their energy signatures were unlike anything Zorath had ever seen, and they moved fast, so fast that his tracking systems could barely follow them. Commander, we're being targeted by over 300 vessels. Energy buildup detected. They're preparing to fire. Zorath stared at the display, unable to process what he was seeing. This was supposed to be a primitive world. These ships shouldn't exist. This technology shouldn't exist. All ships defensive formation. Raise shields. Prepare to. The first salvo hit before he could finish the order. The weapons that struck the Vectari fleet were not plasma cannons or nuclear missiles. They were something else entirely. Beams of energy that passed through shields as if they weren't there. That struck with surgical precision. That disabled and destroyed with terrifying efficiency. Zorath watched 3 of his ships die in the first 2 seconds. Then 4 more. His flagship shuddered as something hit the engine section, and alarms began screaming across the bridge. Return fire. Return fire. His ships tried. The Vectari were experienced warriors, and they fought back with everything they had. But their weapons seemed to bend around the human vessels, deflected by technology that made no sense. In the chaos, Zorath saw something on the main screen that made his blood run cold. The largest human ship was moving toward him. It was smaller than the Eternal Conquest, but it radiated power in a way he had never felt before. His communications panel lit up. An incoming transmission, priority channel. He accepted it. General Stone's face appeared again. Behind him, Zorath could see a command center filled with humans working calmly, efficiently, as if they had done this many times before. Commander Zorath, Stone said, I'm going to give you one more chance. Surrender your remaining ships, and your crew will be treated humanely. Continue fighting, and you will all die. There is no third option. Zorath looked at his tactical display. Of his 20 ships, 11 were already destroyed. The rest were damaged, struggling, trying to retreat. How? He whispered. How is this possible? You made the same mistake everyone makes, Stone replied. You saw what we wanted you to see. You believed we were primitive because we let you believe it. The truth is, we've been ready for this moment for a very long time. Zorath's flagship shuddered again. Hull breach warnings flashed across multiple decks. What are you? Stone's eyes were hard as steel. We're human, and this is our home. Surrender now, Commander. I won't ask again. 11 minutes after the first shot was fired, the Vectari advance fleet was completely destroyed. 6 ships had surrendered. The rest were debris, scattered across Earth's orbit like broken toys. On the planet below, billions of humans looked up at the sky and saw flashes of light they couldn't explain. Their governments would have a lot of explaining to do in the coming hours. Secrets that had been kept for decades would finally be revealed. But for now, in the hidden command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Stone allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had won the first battle. The war, he knew, was just beginning. The world learned the truth in stages. First came the official announcement. Every television station, Every radio frequency, every internet connection carried the same message. The leaders of Earth's major nations appeared together, something that had never happened before, and they told humanity what had been hidden for 7 decades. We are not alone. We have never been alone. And we have been preparing. The reactions were predictable. Fear, anger, disbelief. Religious leaders struggled to explain what this meant for their faiths. Scientists demanded access to technology they had never imagined. Ordinary people looked at the sky and wondered what else had been kept from them. But beneath the chaos, there was something else. Pride. Humanity had been tested, and humanity had won. The monsters from the stars had come to conquer them, and Earth had fought back. In the command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Stone ignored the political storm above and focused on the military reality below. The main Vectari fleet will arrive in approximately 68 hours, his intelligence officer reported. Our intercept suggests they're bringing everything. 3,000 ships, minimum. Possibly more. Stone nodded slowly. Casualties from the first engagement? 17 dead, 42 wounded. All injuries are non-critical. And the enemy? Approximately 4,000 Vectari killed. We recovered 600 prisoners from the surrendered vessels. They're being held in the Pacific facility. Stone turned to the younger officer beside him. Colonel Sarah Chen had been his second in command for 15 years. She knew almost everything he knew, which meant she understood exactly how dangerous the next few days would be. The advance fleet was nothing, she said quietly. 3,000 ships. We have 500. I know. We can't win a straight fight against those numbers. I know that too. Chen waited. Stone was silent for a long moment, staring at the tactical displays that showed Earth's defensive positions. Finally, he spoke. 70 years ago, my predecessor found a crashed probe in the desert. Concorde technology, we later learned. Basic surveillance equipment. But it was enough to tell us something important. We weren't alone, and the universe wasn't friendly. He turned to face her. Do you know what our government's first response was? They wanted to announce it. Tell the world. Unite humanity against a common threat. It was a beautiful idea. What happened? They ran simulations, played out scenarios, and they realized something ugly. Humanity in 1954 wasn't ready for the truth. We were barely out of World War II. We were building nuclear arsenals to point at each other. If we'd told the world about aliens, half the planet would have panicked, and the other half would have tried to figure out how to weaponize the information against their rivals. Stone walked to a display showing Earth from orbit. So they made a different choice. Keep it secret. Use the technology to advance quietly. Watch and learn. And above all, make sure that when the day came, we would be ready. The Shadow Program. That's what they called it, yes. Every major government eventually learned the truth. They agreed to maintain the illusion of conflict while cooperating in secret. The Cold War, the arms races, the political theater. It was all real to the people living through it. But at the highest levels, we were working together, building ships, developing weapons, training personnel. Chen shook her head. I've been part of this program for 20 years. I still can't believe we kept it secret. We almost didn't, several times, but fear is a powerful motivator. Every leader who learned the truth understood the stakes. If word got out before we were ready, if the galaxy learned that humanity knew about them, they might have come for us early. Before we could defend ourselves, a technician approached with a tablet. General, the Concorde transmission you requested. Stone took the device and activated it. A holographic image appeared above the tablet, showing Ambassador Lyris. Her 4 eyes were wide with what might have been shock. General Stone, she said. I don't understand. How is any of this possible? We've been watching your species for 3 centuries. You were supposed to be primitives. We were never primitives, Ambassador. We were patient. But our sensors, our observations, saw exactly what we wanted you to see. Stone's voice was not unkind, but it was firm. We detected your observation posts decades ago. We could have destroyed them, but that would have raised questions. Instead, we let you watch. We gave you a show. Internal conflicts, pollution, the appearance of a species tearing itself apart. Lyris was silent for a long moment. It was all fake? No. Humanity is exactly as messy and complicated as you observed. We do fight among ourselves, We do damage our environment. We are not a perfect species. Stone paused. But we are also capable of something your assessments never accounted for. When we face a true threat, an outside threat, we can come together in ways that surprise even ourselves. The Vecthari main fleet is coming, Lyris said. Whatever you did to their advance force, you cannot repeat it against 3,000 ships. Perhaps not. But we don't intend to face them alone. Lyris's expression shifted. What do you mean? I mean that the Concord abandoned us. You left Earth to die because you thought we weren't worth saving. I understand the logic. I even understand the fear that drove that decision. But now the situation has changed. Stone pulled up tactical data showing the Concord's current military positions. The Vecthari have conquered 6 of your systems in the past month. They're pressing toward your core worlds. Your fleet is in retreat on every front. You're losing this war. We're managing the situation, Lyris said stiffly. No, Ambassador. You're losing. And everyone knows it. But here's the interesting part. Stone leaned forward. Humanity just demonstrated that we can fight the Vecthari. We can hurt them. We have weapons they don't understand and tactics they can't predict. For the first time in 50 years, someone has made the Vecthari bleed. He let that sink in. We're willing to share that advantage. We're willing to join the war. Not just to defend Earth, but to help the Concord push the Vecthari back. All we ask in return is recognition, a seat at the table, and a promise that Earth will never be abandoned again. Lyris was quiet for a very long time. Stone could see her processing, calculating, weighing the impossible thing he was offering. You would help us, she said slowly. After we left you to die, you would fight alongside us. Revenge is a luxury we can't afford. The Vectari are a threat to every free species in the galaxy. That includes humanity. We can waste time being angry about the past, or we can work together to build a better future. Stone smiled slightly. Besides, I've read your literature, Ambassador. Your philosophers talk about the importance of forgiveness. Consider this an opportunity to practice what you preach. Before Lyris could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. Chen was already at her console. General, we're detecting a massive energy surge at the edge of the solar system. FTL signatures. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. Stone's jaw tightened. The Vectari? Confirmed. They're early. The main fleet is here. On the holographic display, Lyris's face had gone pale. General Stone, I have to go, Ambassador. Think about what I said. If you want to help, now would be the time. He cut the transmission and turned to his command staff. All stations to battle alert. Launch everything we have. If the Vectari want Earth, they're going to have to take it from us. Around the world, ships that had returned to hiding rose once again. Pilots who had hoped for a few days of rest climbed back into their cockpits. Defensive platforms that had been held in reserve powered up and locked onto targets. Humanity's secret fleet numbered just over 500 vessels. The Vectari armada that emerged from faster-than-light travel numbered 4,200. The odds were impossible. The situation was hopeless. Any rational analysis would conclude that Earth was doomed, but humanity had never been particularly good at rational analysis. What they were good at was fighting, surviving, refusing to quit even when every logical argument said they should. General Stone watched the enemy fleet spread across his tactical display like a tide of red markers. Behind him, his staff worked with calm efficiency, preparing for a battle they probably couldn't win. Well, he said quietly, I suppose we'll find out what we're really made of. The battle for Sol had begun. The first wave of Vectari ships crashed against Earth's defenses like water against rock. They expected the same easy victory their advance fleet had anticipated. Instead, they found a wall of fire and fury that stopped them cold. Human ships moved through the enemy formation like wolves among sheep. They were smaller and fewer, but they were faster, more agile, and their weapons cut through Vectari shields as if they didn't exist. In the first hour of battle, humanity destroyed over 300 enemy vessels, but it wasn't enough. It could never be enough. Supreme Commander Varketh watched from his flagship, the Dominion's Pride, as his forces pressed forward despite the losses. He had expected resistance. What he had not expected was competence. Fascinating, he murmured, studying the tactical display. Their technology is unlike anything in our databases. Where did they get it? Unknown, Supreme Commander. his aide replied. Some of it appears to be reverse-engineered Concorde equipment. But the rest, we have no explanation. Varketh nodded slowly. He was old for a Vekthari. His scales faded to a dusty gray, but his mind was as sharp as ever. He had built this empire through patience and strategy, not blind aggression. They fight well, he admitted. Better than any species we've encountered. But they're too few. Continue pressing forward. Accept whatever losses are necessary. They will run out of ships before we do. The battle continued. Earth's defenders fought with desperate courage, but the numbers were simply too great. For every Vekthari vessel destroyed, 2 more took its place. Human losses mounted. Ships that had taken decades to build were reduced to debris in seconds. In the command center, General Stone watched the tide turning against them. We've lost 112 ships, Chen reported. The Vekthari have lost nearly 800, but they're not slowing down. At this rate, we'll be overwhelmed within 6 hours. Stone said nothing. He had known this was possible. He had hoped for better, but he had prepared for worse. What about the outer defenses? Mars station is holding, but Jupiter platform was destroyed 20 minutes ago. Saturn base is evacuating. Chen hesitated. General, if we're going to retreat, we're not retreating. Sir, with respect. If we pull back now, we can preserve the fleet, fight a guerrilla war, make them bleed for every planet, every moon, and abandon Earth? Stone shook his head. 8 billion people, Colonel. We're not leaving them. Then we die here. All of us. Perhaps. Stone turned to face her. But we don't die quietly. We don't die running. If humanity ends today, let it end fighting. Let the galaxy remember that we stood. Before Chen could respond, a communication alert flashed across the main display. Priority channel. Concorde encryption. Stone accepted it. Ambassador Lyris appeared, but she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a Concorde military officer in formal uniform, his face grim but determined. General Stone, Lyris said, I've spoken with the Concorde Council. Your proposal has been accepted. Stone felt something loosen in his chest. Accepted? The Concorde defense fleet is on its way. 2,000 ships, everything we could spare from the front lines. They'll arrive in approximately 4 hours. The command center went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and stared at the screen. You're coming to help us, Stone said slowly. You were right, General. We left you to die because we thought you were weak. We were wrong. What you've accomplished here, what your species has built in secret, it changes everything. If humanity can fight the Vekthari, if we can fight them together. Lyris paused. Perhaps this is a war we can actually win. The military officer beside her stepped forward. I am Admiral Kress of the Concorde Combined Fleet. General Stone, my ships will be at your command when they arrive. What do you need us to do? Stone turned to his tactical display. The Vekthari were still advancing, still grinding down Earth's defenses through sheer numbers. 4 hours was a long time, but it wasn't forever. Admiral Kress, here's the situation. We can hold for another few hours, but barely. When you arrive, I need you to hit their right flank. Hard. They've been focusing their strength on our center, trying to punch through to Earth. If you threaten their flanks, they'll have to divert forces to respond. Understood. And your forces? Stone smiled grimly. We'll keep doing what we've been doing, bleeding them, hurting them, reminding them that humanity doesn't give up. The next 4 hours were the longest of Marcus Stone's life. Human ships fought with everything they had. Pilots flew until their fuel ran out, then rammed their vessels into enemy cruisers. Ground-based defense platforms fired until their barrels melted. Civilian ships, hastily armed and crewed by volunteers, threw themselves into the battle to buy a few more minutes of time. The Vekthari kept coming. They lost ship after ship, thousands of warriors dead. But they kept coming. Supreme Commander Varketh had committed to this victory, and he would not be denied. By the time the Concorde fleet emerged from FTL travel, Earth's defensive force had been reduced to less than 200 ships. Half of humanity's secret fleet, the product of 70 years of work, was gone. But Earth still stood. Admiral Kress struck the Vekthari right flank exactly as planned. 2,000 fresh ships crashed into an enemy that had been grinding forward for hours, suddenly finding themselves under attack from an unexpected direction. The battle shifted. Varkith had no choice but to respond to the new threat. He diverted forces from the main assault, weakening his push toward Earth. The humans, battered but unbroken, seized the opportunity to counterattack. For the first time, the Vectari began to retreat, not in panic, not in rout. Varkith was too good a commander for that, but the calculation had changed. What should have been an easy conquest had become a grinding war of attrition against an enemy that wouldn't stop fighting and allies that wouldn't stop coming. 8 hours after the battle began, the Vectari fleet withdrew to the outer solar system to regroup. In the command center, exhausted officers stared at displays that showed something they had barely dared to hope for. The enemy was falling back. Earth had survived. Stone sat heavily in his chair, feeling every one of his 73 years. Casualties? He asked. 32,000 dead in space. Another 100,000 on the ground from bombardment that got through. Chen's voice was hoarse. The Vectari lost over 2,000 ships, but they still have more than enough to finish us if they try again. They won't. Not today. Stone closed his eyes. They expected an easy victory. They didn't get it. Varkith will pull back, bring in more forces, try to figure out what went wrong. We've bought ourselves time. How much time? Days. Maybe weeks. Enough to bring in more Concord ships. Enough to rebuild, rearm, prepare for the next round. He opened his eyes and looked at her. This isn't over, Colonel. This is just the beginning. A communication alert sounded. Admiral Kress appeared on the screen. General Stone. The Vectari are withdrawing to Neptune's orbit. They're not leaving the system, but they're not advancing either. I believe we've achieved a tactical stalemate. For now, Stone agreed. Admiral, on behalf of Earth, thank you. Without your intervention, you would have fought to the last ship and made them pay for every inch. Kress's alien face showed something that might have been respect. I've been fighting the Vectari for 30 years, General. I've never seen anyone hurt them the way you did today. Your species is remarkable. Stone allowed himself a small smile. We've had time to prepare, Admiral. And very good motivation. Indeed. Kress paused. The Concord Council has requested that a human delegation travel to our capital. They wish to discuss a formal alliance, a seat on the council for your species, equal partnership in the war against the Dominion. An interesting offer. One we'll need to discuss, of course. But General, I hope you understand what this means. The galaxy has been watching this battle. Every species in the Concord, every world under Vectari occupation, they've all seen what happened here today. They've seen that the Dominion can be stopped, that someone can stand against them and survive. Kress leaned forward. You haven't just saved your planet, General Stone. You've given the galaxy something it hasn't had in 50 years. Hope. The transmission ended. Stone sat in the quiet command center, surrounded by exhausted officers and blinking displays showing the debris of the greatest battle in human history. Hope, he thought. Such a small word for such a heavy burden, but it was a burden humanity had chosen to carry, and they would carry it all the way to the heart of the Vectari Dominion, if that's what it took. The war lasted 3 years. 3 years of battles across 100 systems. 3 years of liberation campaigns and desperate defenses. 3 years of humanity showing the galaxy what it truly meant to be a death world species. The human fleet grew as factories on Earth and Mars worked without rest. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to fly the ships that had saved their world. The Concord provided resources and intelligence, but increasingly, they provided something else. Respect. Human tactics became legendary. Where other species fought with careful precision and overwhelming numbers, humans fought with creativity and fury. They developed strategies that made no sense on paper but worked in practice. They took risks that should have been suicidal and somehow survived. They never stopped, never retreated unless forced, never accepted defeat as final. The Vectari didn't know how to handle them. General Stone led the combined fleet's advance personally. Despite his age and his doctor's protests, he stood on the bridge of the UES Resolution, humanity's largest warship, and watched as system after system was freed from Vectari occupation. The liberated worlds were the hardest part. Not the fighting, but what came after. Entire species had been enslaved for generations. Billions of beings had known nothing but servitude their whole lives. Freeing them was simple. Helping them rebuild was the real challenge. But humanity tried. That was what surprised everyone. The humans didn't just conquer and move on. They stayed. They helped. They shared technology and resources with species that had nothing. They treated former slaves like people, not victims. "You don't have to do this," Admiral Kress said once, watching human aid ships unload supplies on a devastated world. "Most conquerors take what they want and leave." "We're not conquerors," Stone replied. "We never wanted an empire. We just wanted to be safe. And the only way to be truly safe is to make sure everyone else is safe too." Kress considered this. A strange philosophy for a species so good at war. Maybe that's why we're so good at it. We don't fight because we enjoy it. We fight because we have to. And when we don't have to anymore, we stop. The final battle came at Vecthar Prime, the heart of the Dominion. Supreme Commander Varketh had gathered every remaining ship, every warrior, every weapon his empire possessed. The defense fleet numbered nearly 10,000 vessels. The orbital platforms bristled with weapons that could crack moons. This was the Vectari homeworld, and they would defend it to the last. The combined fleet approached slowly, methodically. Human ships formed the center, flanked by Concord vessels. Ships from a dozen liberated species followed behind, crewed by former slaves who had chosen to fight their former masters. Stone studied the tactical display showing the massive enemy formation. 3 years of war had taught him to respect Vectari determination. They would not surrender easily. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Wide broadcast. I want everyone to hear this." The communications officer nodded. "Channel open, General." Stone took a breath. He was 80 years old now, and he could feel death waiting somewhere not far away. But not today. Today, he had one more speech to give. "Supreme Commander Varketh, this is General Marcus Stone of the Combined Fleet. Your empire is finished. Your conquered worlds are free. Your fleets are destroyed. You have nothing left except the choice of how this ends." He paused, letting the words cross the void between them. "I'm offering you terms. Surrender your military forces and accept responsibility for your crimes. In exchange, your homeworld will be spared. Your people will be allowed to rebuild as a member of the galactic community, not as rulers, but as equals." Static. Then Varketh's voice, tired but still proud. "You expect me to surrender? After everything? I expect you to make a choice, Supreme Commander. The same choice every tyrant eventually faces. You can fight to the end and watch your people die, or you can accept that your empire was wrong, that conquest is not the path forward, and give your species a chance at something better. Something better." Varketh's laugh was bitter. "We ruled 200 worlds. We were the greatest power in the galaxy. And you want me to surrender to primitives?" Stone smiled slightly. "We were never primitives, Commander. We were just patient. And perhaps that's a lesson worth learning. Strength isn't measured by how many worlds you can take. It's measured by what you choose to do when you have the power to take them." Pretty words from someone about to slaughter my people. I don't want to slaughter anyone. I never did. 3 years ago, your advance fleet came to Earth. They expected an easy conquest. Instead, they found a species that had been preparing for war while hoping for peace. We built weapons because we had to. We learned to fight because we had no choice. But fighting was never the goal. Stone leaned forward. "I'm giving you a chance, Varketh. Take it. Choose peace. Choose your people's future over your empire's pride. Because if you don't, if you force this battle, we will destroy every ship you have, and then we'll still spare your homeworld. Because that's who we are. That's what humanity does." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then, slowly, the Vectari defensive fleet began to power down their weapons. The surrender negotiations lasted 2 days. Varketh agreed to full disarmament. War criminals would face trial. Conquered species would receive reparations. The Vectari Dominion, the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for a century, was officially dissolved. The announcement was broadcast across every civilized world. Billions of beings who had lived in fear their entire lives learned that it was finally over. The celebrations lasted for weeks. In the aftermath, the Concord Council invited humanity to take its place among them, not as junior members, not as probationary participants, but as full equals. Some council members objected. Humanity was still young, still aggressive, still unpredictable, but the majority agreed. A species that had shown such strength and such mercy deserved a voice in shaping the future. The human ambassador who addressed the council was not General Stone. His health had finally failed after the war, and he spent his remaining months on Earth, watching the sunrise from his family's ranch in Montana. But his words were read into the record by his successor, Colonel Sarah Chen. 300 years ago, the Concorde looked at Earth and saw a primitive world. They saw a species that fought among itself, that damaged its own environment, that couldn't seem to stop making terrible mistakes. And they weren't wrong. We were all of those things. In many ways, we still are. Chen paused, looking around the chamber at representatives from 100 different species. But you missed something important. You saw our weaknesses without understanding our strengths. You saw our conflicts without recognizing our resilience. You thought our violence made us dangerous, without realizing that the same capacity for violence, properly directed, could also make us protectors. Humanity spent 70 years preparing for a war we hoped would never come. We built ships and weapons in secret, not because we wanted to conquer, but because we wanted to survive. When the Vectari came, we fought. When you offered alliance, we accepted. When we won, we chose mercy. She straightened. That is who we are. Flawed, yes. Dangerous, certainly, but also capable of extraordinary things when we work together. The galaxy thought we were primitives. Now you know better. We were never primitive. We were patient. We were watching. We were preparing. And now we're here. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, just as neighbors, ready to help build something better than what came before. We've seen what the galaxy looks like when the strong prey on the weak. We've seen empires built on fear and slavery. We want no part of that. Humanity offers the Concorde our friendship, our technology, our determination. In return, we ask only for respect, equality, and a promise that no world will ever be abandoned again. No species left behind. No people sacrificed for convenience. She smiled slightly. We came from a world where everything tried to kill us. We survived. We adapted. We thrived. And now we're ready to help others do the same. The vote was unanimous. Earth became the newest member of the Galactic Concorde that day, not as a primitive world that had somehow stumbled into space, but as a partner, an ally, and a reminder that strength and mercy could exist in the same heart. General Marcus Stone died 6 months later, peacefully, in his sleep. His funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the Concorde. Ships from a dozen different worlds flew overhead in formation. The galaxy that had once dismissed humanity as irrelevant had come to honor a man who had proven them wrong. His tombstone bore a simple inscription, words he had spoken years before. We were never primitives. We were patient, and the galaxy never forgot.